Final word. It is season something or other. It's episode 18 or 19, season 18, episode 19. There we go. We didn't have a weekly show at the start of last week because we had the Todd Greenberg interview. We went straight into the World Test Championship. So it meant that we couldn't cover off the end of the England-West Indies women's series where the runs kept coming for England and they didn't keep coming for West Indies, largely because Hayley Matthews did her shoulder again, which is bad news, and wasn't available for those last two games. England won it 3-0, which means they won the white ball dual format series 6-0, as tends to happen when West Indies visit England these days. And a lot of runs for Tammy Beaumont and Amy Jones, both made hundreds opening in the second of those games as they racked up a big 350-plus score.
As they had in the first. So history here, the first time in one-day history, men or women, where players have made hundreds in consecutive games together opening, which is quite nice. So Amy Jones and Tammy Beaumont, that looks to be the combination that'll now go to the 50-over World Cup later this year. So, yeah, Jones getting 129 in her 98th and 99th one-day as she's got her first and second one-day tons. That was Kate Cross's 100th international for England as well across formats. So that generation who came through together, all enjoying success. And with Beaumont, so there's the Jones story, which, gosh, they've been wanting a version of that for years for her to become a true match winner in a more consistent way. How about Beaumont watch? 12 hundreds in one-day cricket. Only Bates with 13 and Lanning 15, as I mentioned last week. But you drill down a bit more on that. So she's 34 now, heaps of one-day cricket this year. You would expect she will overtake Bates and maybe Lanning between now and the end of that 50-over World Cup, the schedule for which has been released during the week. It begins on the 30th of September and it ends on, I want to say, the 4th of November. We're putting in the early steps now to make sure we have daily coverage of that, which will be great. If you want to sponsor the daily coverage, all the better. Now, if you root maths this, though, Lanning played fewer innings than all of them because, what an extraordinary record she had. So Bates has played 164 one-day innings. Beaumont's played about 130 odd. Lanning's played 102. But if you root maths it and you just go to when Beaumont started making hundreds, the start of that remarkable run back in 2016, she's also played 102 innings. So 103 innings ago, the streak started for Beaumont in this format. So if you use 102 innings as the marker, Lanning's only 300s ahead of where Beaumont is at this stage, acknowledging that's all distorted
Which
numbers.
is still a lot when it's 20% of the number of hundreds that Lanning made.
Totally. I guess all I'm trying to say is that we think of Lanning as being this extraordinary outlier, and in many respects she is. But Beaumont's body of work between 2016 and now is also quite remarkable. And as I say, if she does get to the top of that tree, it'd be thoroughly well-deserved because, as I wrote about when she was one of the Wisden Cricketers of the Year, would have been 2019, 2018, something like that. It took a long time for her to click, but since it has, it's been a great story. So well played, Tammy Beaumont. Great stuff, Amy Jones. And reason to be concerned with the West Indies because when Matthews isn't there, they're uncompetitive. They lost the last two games by 143 runs and 9 wickets, respectively.
The Euro Slam. I feel like I've heard this story about 7 times over the last 8 or 9 years that there's going to be a European T20 tournament involving the tier of countries who are looking to push up and join the top tier, the Dutch, the Irish, the Scots, and then it doesn't happen. What's going on?
Well, this has been rattling around for 7 years now. 7 years.
So that instinct was right.
Not to get the comp on. So I mentioned Nathan Johns earlier, who's our Irish correspondent, let's call him, on the podcast. He's been writing about this on his Substack, The Part-Timer, which is well worth subscribing to if you want to have a handle on Irish cricket because he's fairly fearless in the way he goes about things. He doesn't muck around. And he's fairly cynical about this tournament. It was a very funny, Instagram story from Andy Balbirnie, who took the piss out of this announcement when it came through straight away. I can't remember the exact frame he used, but it was worth. Oh, here it is. I've brought it up on my screen. So, Euro T20 League backed by Bollywood to be postponed, and Balbo's written death, taxes, and so former Irish captain. He's been there for all of this. The nub of it is that there is a want from the owners who now the co-owner of the league is an Indian billionaire, as so has been explained, and of course it's been co-owned with the 3 boards, Scotland, Ireland, and the Dutch. And the nub of it is that between the owners and the broadcasters, they haven't got the type of pickup with sales of the 6 teams because they want foreign investment. In a perfect world, they want it to be 6 IPL teams, presumably, like everywhere else is. But they haven't had that level of interest yet. They're asking for a heap of money for it for these franchises.
How many teams can you sell as well? Like, because everybody's selling teams at the moment. The Brits are flogging off teams. The South Africans have just flogged off all their teams. Cricket Australia's playing a little footsie with maybe selling off bits of some of its teams. Everybody's got teams to sell. We could sell some teams. We could start a final word T20 league and go, we've got 6 franchises to sell for merely 50 to 80 million a pop. You two could pop in. Do you know somebody rich in Mumbai who's willing to throw in 50 mil, get in touch?
Well, yeah, I think they want 30 mil here. The way Nathan's reported that they want 3 mil a year across a 10-year agreement for the teams, and it's just not had the take up they require. So, yeah, this is the challenge, right? If this continues to not work, then what? This is that. And by the way, in 2019, they weren't exactly early adopters, but this is before the world totally changed in 2022 with the SA20 and with the what's the one in UAE, the ILT20.
ILT20, just the David White dream
and the
machine.
100 and the 100. So that and the MLC. So there are a multitude of very lucrative competitions that exist now, which are effectively IPL satellite comps.
Right, but are any of them actually making money?
Well, I don't know. How are we? Well, they must
strongly
be to an
doubt
extent.
it.
They must be in South Africa to an extent because of the way they're bankrolling South African cricket. But I don't know. But the point is that those with resources to buy teams have been doing that. They've been hoovering up teams and now this is not as attractive as it would have been, I guess. And
I think my understanding of it is the IPL is making money and everything else is this may make money in the future. But be aware that the vast majority of people who own sporting teams in any sport lose vast sums of money on it. That's how it works. Major League Baseball teams lose vast amounts of money. Professional football teams all lose vast amounts of money. Their wage bills are extraordinary at those higher levels. People go into it for ego and prestige. They don't go into it to cash in.
Yeah, I intend on losing money in a sports team at some stage.
Yeah.
If I were to be successful enough to lose money in a sports team, that would be fun. Improbable as it is. Speaking of the MLC, it began about a week and a half ago with Finn Allen smashing 151 from 51 balls on opening night. So McCullum-esque, you could say. That was for San Fran. I'm not sure if Pat Cummins goes to play for them now that I don't really know how it fits, really.
I don't think he was planning to. He's got test captaincy.
Yeah.
Smith was going to go, but now his hand's fucked, so he won't.
Oh, yeah. Well, Smith might have gone after the Windies. I'm not sure how long it runs for. I suppose
no, he was supposed to go before the Windies. He was going to go and play
drop
2 games. He was going to drop in now for 2 matches before the Test series.
I see. Well, he won't be doing that. So then 6 other games happened. So let's pretend that we care about those. And then last night, at the famous Oakland Coliseum, Glenn Maxwell reached 11 from 15 balls. And when he was done, he was 106 not from 49 balls. He was 11 from 15. And doing the math on that, what's the rest of it? That's a 95 in 34 balls thereafter, which is very, very Maxwellian, much like the 100 he made against Holland in the World Cup a couple of years ago. I reckon half a dozen of those sixes were one-handed. Maxi, one hand off the bat, still clearing the rope stuff. He hit 13 sixes and 2 fours, which is probably a record of some description in terms of the 6-to-4 ratio. It's his first runs in a while, Max. He hadn't had a great run this year, so nice since the BBL anyway. So nice to do that against the Los Angeles Knight Riders in a ground
the Oakland Coliseum. Is that where the A's used to play?
Too right. And this is I like this part of the story. I remember one of my first memories was the San Francisco earthquake and the battle of the battle of the bridge and that being that happening, that horrible earthquake in November '89 being at the same time as the San Francisco what do they call it? The San Francisco, is it the Giants, the baseball team? I should know that really, but I don't.
They are
playing the Oakland A's and having a World Series played in essentially the same city across the bridge. But yeah, it's that.
What are the,
it's that
what
same
are the
ground.
49ers? Is there a
football?
What do they play? Football. Yeah. San Francisco.
But yeah, they that's the same ground. And now because the Oakland A's have sadly moved to Las Vegas, or they're on their way to moving to Las Vegas,
well, they haven't.
Sacramento.
Yeah, they haven't got there. Yeah, that's the thing. So I was planning to spend like a month in Sacramento this year watching the A's play at Rivercat Stadium, just because I thought it was a fun, interesting story that you got like all of the big teams in baseball would have had to play their away games at Rivercat Stadium, which is kind of bizarre. It's such a small, unassuming ground. But I'm a little. I've revised that while feeling cautious about getting my head kicked in by US border security trying to get into the country while probably being tagged as some kind of disruptive communist agitator or something because
Probably.
I've, posted something online that said maybe they've got a few problems with when they've got, masked people ripping people off the streets and stuffing them into vans. Maybe that's not great. They don't seem to like that at the moment. So might give that one a swerve.
But yeah, just a handbrake turn back to the Coliseum. Wouldn't it be cool? I don't know what the go is for the MLC. I don't know much about it. I met the chap who part owns it at Cricket Connects, who seems a really interesting guy, American guy. And I mean, they've got enormous ambition. Why wouldn't you? It's a new league. It's in America. It's always about cracking America, isn't it? So whether that's met by reality, who's to know? But so having a big old school baseball stadium, maybe I don't know. Are they planning on demolishing it? Is that the go when the A's leave? Let's keep it for cricket.
No. So what happened? So the A's tried to go back on it. The A's said we're going to Vegas because they were supposed to get a stadium built for them, then the government authorities were like, actually, we're not going to. Why would we spend the money to buy you a stadium? And they were also trying to get it. So the guy who was, I'm getting this a bit jumbled, but the guy who was trying to mastermind this move also wanted his construction company to be the one to get paid to build the stadium that was being paid for by taxpayers in Vegas and not by him. So he was going to own the baseball team that would play at the stadium that he would also get paid to build, which is having a few different licks of the ice cream there. Indeed. Anyway, when that fell over, they tried to go back to the Coliseum, and the Coliseum said, no, get stuffed. You already left in bad odour, and so we're not going to backtrack and take you back. So that's why it's doing other things at the moment.
What I loved was watching Maxi hit dingers over the baseball walls. That's pretty cool. I just
didn't realise he was doing it at the ground. Like that's the ground where Ricky Henderson, set the base stealing records. Like I don't watch baseball as a game, but I like baseball stories, and like the Ricky Henderson's one of my favourite athletes in terms of the story. And so it's amazing to have Glenn Maxwell and Ricky Henderson suddenly joined in a way I didn't expect.
If I were an American, I would be a massive baseball badger. I played it when I was in the States in high school. I loved it. But anyway, that's not the game we are talking about on this podcast. It's cricket being played in a baseball stadium, and Glenn Maxwell making 106 not out from 49 balls. Hello, Glenn. I hope you're having a nice time. Speaking of the T20 world, Jeff, as we round out our conversation, gone are the days of the Michael Nisa bunny hop. You're better at this than me. This is going to be in the October Laws updates. Every year, MCC does the new book. The revision of the previous book. We must be due one, actually. It's usually every 5 years. Maybe next year is a brand spanker. And then each year they do some laws revisions. They're at Lords under the tutelage of Fraser Stewart, great man, who we've had on the pod many times. But yeah, it sounds like they've seen the NISA thing, like we better get on top of this. So it's going to be tidied up for the ICC playing conditions for the new cycle of the World Test Championship, which has started this week. So that it'll be not allowed now in those games, and then the laws will kick in later in the year.
Yes, so this is the type of catch where the player leaves the field of play, then jumps in the air at the moment of intercepting the ball to throw it back up in the air to try to get it back into the field of play so that they can go inside the field of play and then catch it and land inside, which honestly, I kind of thought that was already how it was. I already thought that to some extent that you could jump off the ground from inside the field and knock the ball up in the air, and that was legit. But it makes sense if you've landed outside and then jumped in the air again and then hit the ball. You've taken off from outside the field. So you're effectively part of the world outside the field of play at that point. And you're only part of the world inside the field of play if the last point that you touched the ground was inside the field. So that's the way that it will now need to be. You could throw yourself over the boundary and tap a ball up and then get up and run back inside, I think, as long as you touch the ground inside the boundary before taking the catch. But you can't jump in from outside and take the catch in midair and be considered as having been inside when you left the ground outside.
I think anyone that has enjoyed that's
intuitive.
The improvement of fielding since T20 entered the fray 20 odd years ago, longer than that now, has appreciated the boundary catching just being stunning, and it's some of the most remarkable stuff you see in cricket. But that NISA one was an example of where it felt like that wasn't right. It didn't meet the sniff test. Because in theory, he could have kept doing the bunny hop over and over again until he decided to jump back over
in theory, you could run into the crowd. In theory, if you were like, I'm fielding at deep mid-wicket and someone's facing the last ball and they're going to hit it this way for 6, you could run 10 rows back and then jump off a seat and pop the ball up and then keep popping the ball up all the way back to the field of play.
Yeah, the only issue there being you need to be inside the field of play when the ball's bowled. But your point stands, right? You can
but as soon as the ball's bowled, you could take off and jump the fence and run into the grandstand and then start throwing it up in the air and get it back inside the field.
But in any case, like what this does now is it tidies that up. It makes it very clear, and it's good that the ICC are putting it in playing conditions now, because what you don't want is a few months before it all, So that's where the laws will.
The new ICC playing conditions are great. They'll have the laws down one side of the page, and then the obverse side of each page will just be a big photo of Jay Shah looking majestic with his hair blowing back in a range of poses. In one of them, he's on a motorcycle. In one of them, he's got an eagle, on a leather glove on his arm. In one of them, he's hang gliding. So there'll be a whole range of the recreational times of the heroic figure of our age.
It's the proper sort of Ray Martin, Eric Banner hair, isn't it? The way it's set up. Eric Banner doing Ray Martin many years ago. The way his hair is set at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. But more importantly, we'll keep an eye on the administration of the game, which is where we started the show. We'll end it there as well, appropriately. We thank Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, #1 plaintiff law firm in Australia, for their support. Subscribe to Wisdom in the usual way. And we thank our patrons. We thank our patrons profusely for making it all possible. This is a pretty intense run for us. As I mentioned off the top, we record like sometimes multiple times a day. The only way that's viable is the base that is patreon.com/the final word. Great time to join our Discord channel. Great time to back us in. Lots of
popping off.
Lots of expenses. Lots of things that crop up and make life more challenging when running a little small business like this. And the more people who sign up to Patreon, the more secure we feel and the less anxious we feel day to day with spending money. Not that we should feel anxious about that, but you know what I mean? It's just a way in which it makes the world go round, and it provides, because, ultimately commercial revenue is volatile. Patron revenue is stable, and that's the way that we try and run our show. In saying all of that, if you want to be a commercial partner, I mentioned it earlier, adam@finalwordcricket.com, info@finalwordcricket.com. Find me, find Nick, who works with us. Let's get on a call as soon as possible. And you can do as New Brew have done and sign up for our daily shows or our longer form shows. We've got some amazing interviews coming up. Have your brand and name plastered all over them. You can do that very easily by working with me in the short term. Jeff, that's it. That's us done. Our next episode in the feed will be you and Norky tomorrow, talking about what's going to happen after we've heard from the captains at Leeds. And we've got a story time. No, we don't actually. Story time's already gone. There'll be another story time. There'll be many more other story times. And then I'll next be on the feed when I'm in the Caribbean next week with Virat, and Jeff will join me the day after that. That works well.
That's it. That's it from me. That's it from you. It's been the final word. We will see you very, very soon.
Uru.